I am so excited to introduce our Direction, Not Perfection community to Devin Burke, who is an international and TEDx speaker, the best-selling author of The Sleep Advantage, the founder of Sleep Science Academy, and one of the top health and sleep coaches in the world. His books, keynotes, programs, and videos have inspired thousands of people to improve their sleep, energy, and their life. Welcome, Devin.
Thanks for having me, Lindsey. Excited to talk sleep.
I know, me too. I haven't done a lot of talks on sleep, and I really feel like our listeners are going to eat this up today and have so many questions. So, we are going to do a two-part series, and today will be our kickoff, and it'll be more broad brushstrokes of really understanding like the foundations of why we need it, the health of sleep. And so I'm going to just turn the mic over to you and talk as long as you want on this. Like, how did you get passionate here and your belief system around why you really do believe that sleep is it? This is the starting
Yeah,
point of health.
sure. I'll give you the short version of a long story, but um, I, like most people, thought sleep was a waste of time. And it was because I'm a really good sleeper. And so growing up, my family used to call me narco, short for narcoleptic, as like a joke, because they would all be
Mhm.
watching sports and I'd be passed out on the couch. So I really, honestly, I studied a lot of different things before I started helping people with sleep. And what led me into sleep was I was working with a lot of high performing entrepreneurs, people that own companies and businesses, more mindset life coaching. And someone came to me with a sleep issue and asked me for help. And I said, well, let me look into it. I don't really know that much about it. And I was blown away by what I found. Not only did I discover it is the foundation of health, but there's not a lot of good solutions for people that have sleep issues. Primarily they're sleeping pills. And so that really piqued my interest. So long story short, I started to really dive into the science and started to understand, well, why is sleep important? How can we improve sleep if we're not sleeping? I was able to help this one individual. And I said, well, if I can help him, I can help the 40 other plus million people that have sleep issues. And that's really what got me into so passionate about sleep and talking about it all the time, all day long. So,
Isn't that funny how a path can turn?
yeah, it is. If you would have asked me, 6 years ago, if I would be talking about sleep and giving TEDx presentations on sleep and writing books on sleep, I'd be like, what no, like that is the furthest thing that I thought I would be um, educating people on and sharing about. But I just didn't know. It's like, you don't know what you don't know. Right. So I'm really grateful for that turn because so many people, this is such a big problem for so many people. And it really is when you think about it from what's most important in our health and longevity, it goes air, right? We last a couple of minutes without air, a couple of days without water. The next most important thing in that line is sleep. Then it's nutrition. Then it's exercise or movement. So, and most people, when they think about their health, well, they really just focus on that last two categories, which is the fitness and nutrition part, and they never really make it to understanding how important sleep is. Um, and when you're doing it right, you're able to train harder. You're able to, you make better decisions. You're able to lose weight. There's so many reasons why sleep is essential, which I'm sure we're going to get into in this conversation. Um, but just most people I think most people just don't realize. They think exercise and nutrition, health, right? But there's this whole other sort of foundational piece that's called sleep. That's so important.
Why do you think that people don't automatically go there? I do think it's becoming a little more known or a little more talked about, but
Yeah.
why is that not one of the first areas we go, this might really be affecting me?
I think that there's two parts to that question. I thought about this a lot. One, it's culturally looked at as a waste of time. You snooze, you lose. Sleep when you're dead. So there's this whole sort of cultural thing around sleep, and then it's people we're unconscious. It's not sleep isn't sexy. Like most people see sleep as a waste of time. They really do. They see it as wasted time. People, there's something called sleep procrastination where people don't want to sleep because they feel like they're missing out on their life. And actually,
Mm.
when you don't sleep enough, you're missing out on your life because it affects every aspect of your life. But so there's the culture of stigmas, and then there's just like the unconscious part. For people that it's not an issue for, it's just you don't think about it. It only becomes when it's an issue does it become like, okay, this is a huge thing that I need to focus on. So unfortunately, sleep is not sexy. But now it is turning. It is becoming sexy. It is, a lot of celebrities, a lot of, athletes. There's a lot more science around it now. So now there's a lot more talk about it, and people are starting to understand how important it is now. So that's a good thing.
I agree. The studies are helping immensely. So this is funny. I am definitely your narcoleptic twin over here. Like I have never had a problem. I was the one falling asleep on the couch too. Even in college, my housemates would joke because like at some point in the night I would sneak off because I'm like, and I'm out. I'm going to bed. Like I love my sleep.
Yes.
Like where'd Lindsay go? Oh, she snuck off again. She's
Yeah.
in
So
bed.
that's such a gift. I didn't realize that it was a gift. I kind of used to think of it like almost it was kind of like a curse sometimes because it's like everyone's having fun. I'm like you, I'm off in the corner sleeping. What's interesting about that, and I don't know if this is in your experience, but when I actually started to study sleep and like apply what I was learning and track my sleep, I realized that I wasn't as good of a sleeper as I thought. And maybe the reason why I was sleeping so much or so well was because I wasn't getting into these deeper stages of sleep where restoration actually happens. And so it was really interesting when I started to track my sleep to see, wow, I wasn't actually getting 20% of my total sleep time in deep sleep or REM sleep. And these trackers are not 100% accurate, but they're pretty good. They're getting better with the algorithms and the technology. So, and when I started to actually implement some of the changes and get deeper sleep and more REM sleep, I noticed a big difference in how I felt. So that was an interesting this personal discovery on my journey here.
Yeah, I could see that being a big aha. I feel like my brain always goes to, at this point in my life, I know that I drink coffee or I know that I do some things that, and I would like for you to go into some of those watch outs. I like have so many questions for you. I don't know where to start. I think one of them, as you and I are saying that we're so blessed, that comes easy to us. It would probably help for individuals to hear what are the scary things about not sleeping enough? Like, why should people's ears perk up at this moment and go, take note? This is important.
Yeah. So, well, there's not an important area of your life that isn't affected when you're not getting enough sleep. So, from a health and longevity standpoint, every single major disease from cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, everything, your risk for all of those major diseases massively increases when you're not getting the optimal amount of sleep. So, a lot of people think, well, that's far away, well, it's going to be a lot sooner than you think if you don't prioritize and protect sleep. And I don't want to kind of like doom and gloom and like scare people into prioritizing their sleep. But if you really look at the science and you start to look at the studies and you understand what happens every single night, meaning like the glimpse system in our brain where the beta amyloid, the tau, the plaque that build up that create Alzheimer's, that's when that gets cleaned out. We have cancer in our bodies. Everyone has cancer in their bodies, these damaged free cells. It's during the night that the body's clearing that out, repairing that. And so if you're not getting enough sleep or enough quality of sleep, those processes over time are not really working the way that they need to be. And that leads to cancer. That leads to heart disease. That leads to diabetes. That leads to all these different things. Not to mention from a cognitive standpoint, our memory. I mean, it's during the night that short-term memory gets shuttled to long-term storage. It's when we're underslept, we're not able to retain information. We misread emotion. We're more irritable. We crave sugar and fat like crazy. We wonder why we can't lose weight because our cortisol is high. So there's so many reasons why sleep really is something that people want to focus and protect and prioritize. And if they're not doing it well, really focus on how to do it well.
Yes, and thank you for pointing out. We are definitely not here to do this scare tactic. That is like the last way that both of us, both Devin and I are coaches. Like the last thing we want to
Yeah.
do is come in with that tactic. It's building insight today and acknowledging the fact that that's real and it does need attention. And so like lowest hanging fruit I like to talk about a lot, where maybe our listeners today could go, okay, that freaks me out because I'm a terrible sleeper. And what have I already done to my body? What would be a conversation that you'd have with one of your clients if they were like now panicked?
Yes, I'm so happy. Such a great question. So we have this thing at Sleep Science Academy. We have these three P's that people fall into when they're having sleep issues. And one of the P patterns we call them is the pedestal pattern. And it's where people put sleep on a pedestal. Now, here's the tricky thing about it. It actually deserves to be on a pedestal. But by putting it on a pedestal, paradoxically, you are creating this anxiety, this fear. You're giving something this power, and that creates activation, which can be the very thing that keeps you from having your body do it. Because sleep's kind of one of these things. Sleep is a result. It's not the problem. And that was the other P. People treat it like it's a problem. They're problem solvers. Problem solvers usually have sleep issues. They're like, okay, my sleep's a problem. I need to solve it. And they're treating it like it's a problem. And it's not a problem. It's the result. It's just a result. So there's probably, if there's problems, they're not sleep. We need to see what are the real problems. And then the other P is the perfectionist pattern. And this is where people that are trying to make the perfect, they're trying to make it perfect. And sleep happens. And so if you're trying to force and control sleep, that's a sure strategy to not sleep well, because it happens. You can't force or control it. It just happens. So these are really important things for people to understand. But that pedestal one is usually a tricky one for people. So, so hopefully that makes sense and is valuable for people listening to this. Just having the awareness of these patterns is helpful.
Absolutely. I think I'm a pedestal girl because that was my biggest fear going into pregnancy and newborn was, oh my gosh, my sleep. Like, I know I'm not going to be the same human being that I want to be without the right amount of sleep. So
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. Run through them one more time. Pedestal.
Yeah. So it's the pedestal pattern, right? There's problem solver pattern, and then there's the perfectionist pattern. So we call them at Sleep Science Academy, we call them the three Ps. And most people that I've discovered after working with thousands of people that have really bad issues with their sleep, most people have all three or at least one or two of these patterns going on. And just having the realization that oh, wow, that is going on, and that's not helpful to improve sleep is a huge step in the right direction.
Okay, so awareness. So somebody comes in and they build awareness, and then what's the next step?
Yeah. So once you have the awareness, then it's around getting the tools, right? And understanding, well, what is it that, we start people. So the way that we address sleep is a little bit backwards. And let me explain what I mean by that. So when most people have sleep issues, they look at their environment. So they do what's called like sleep hygiene. So they make the room cold and dark, and they maybe have a nighttime ritual, and they do things like that, which are great, but that's really for quality of sleep. Then they go to, okay, well, if that's not working, then they look at the physiology. Okay, there must be something physically wrong with me. Maybe I need to change my diet, or I need to start exercising, or I'm doing too much, whatever. So then they go to the physiology. Then they finally go to the psychology of like, maybe it's like how I'm thinking about this. That's literally the journey that most people go. They go from the environment, right? Then they go into the physiology, then psychology. What we do is we go psychology first, physiology second, then we go into the environment. Because the environment is really the last thing that's really for sleep quality. That's not going to help you if you're not getting enough sleep, or if you have hyperarousal loops because you're telling yourself a story that's creating fear, that's then releasing cortisol and adrenaline in the middle of the night, which of course you're not going to be able to sleep if that's happening. That your body thinks that it's getting chased by a tiger. That's not going to go to sleep. So that's how so once you have the awareness, and there's a lot of awarenesses within those sort of buckets, if you will, but having the awareness that maybe you have one of these patterns, then understanding, okay, well, what am I thinking that's not true? Right? What am I telling? So we always look at like what's useful and what's not useful. And so you have the awareness, okay, this is going on. And then just asking the question, like, is that useful? Right? So is it like tonight, if somebody is listening to this and they're definitely a pedestal person, is it useful to think about, oh my God, I'm going to get cancer and heart disease and diabetes because Devin told me? Is that useful when you're going to sleep? No, it's not. So this is where you can practice some acceptance, some mindfulness. This is where, some emotional intelligence can come in. We teach a lot of different sort of strategies, but only when people have the foundation awareness and understanding of why they're using these strategies. And one big thing, as I kind of close my loop here, it's a big one, is people. I find people fall into this trap of they're doing things so that they sleep. I'm going to meditate, or I'm going to exercise, or I'm going to do this or that so that I sleep. There's an expectation there. That's dangerous, because then whatever you do, if your sleep doesn't improve, now you get even more anxious or excited or worried about it. So just do the things to do them because they create the opportunity for sleep to happen. It's a really important distinction for people listening to this to understand. You cannot force or control sleep. So if you're doing something with the thought of, I'm doing this so that I can sleep, you're in the danger zone, because that's going to create, there's this expectation, there's this attachment, and that can be the very thing that keeps you from sleeping.
Right. So it's such a fine line, though. So we can't have that expectation, but you're saying you're doing it because it's a possibility.
Yes. Yeah. The greatest opportunity for sleep to happen, because we can't force or control sleep. And it's like, that's the thing. People get into the mindset of, oh, I can force or control my sleep, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take my supplements and I'm going to do my meditation, and then I'm going to get in bed and count the sheep, and then I'm going to sleep. And that's maybe not. So that expectation of it's really interesting. It's a very thin kind of hairline distinction that makes actually a big difference for people that have issues with their sleep, believe it or not.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I feel like expectation is one of those words that keeps coming up in my world too, because expectations in general are normally further away from our reality, and really needing to close that chasm, that gap, because if we close it, then we're winning a lot more. And if our gap's too big, then we're losing a lot more. And I could see that with sleep too, like you're saying, that there'd be a lot more failures if you just expected this melatonin, this meditation is going to change everything. No, right. It's a part of the journey.
That's right.
Thank you. You have a way of speaking that really gives like some really clear visuals. So I appreciate that. I feel like my audience is going to kill me if I let you go before we talk about, because you already mentioned this, but that weight loss can even be part of this. Talk on that for a second.
So a couple things happen that are connected to weight loss during the night. So the first thing, during the night, we're actually burning a lot of fat. And when we're not getting enough sleep, two things happen. Well, first, our cortisol gets elevated. And normally cortisol's the fat storing hormone, stress hormone, is highest in the morning, right? That's natural, that's good. But when we have sleep debt, what's happening is that cortisol is higher and it stays higher throughout the day. So essentially our body's more stressed, and the stressed body it thinks it needs to hold on to resources, aka fat, to survive, right? And then there's the balance between ghrelin and leptin, which are the hunger and the full signaling hormones. So what happens is then people crave sugar and fat like crazy, and their bodies don't understand when they're full, because those two hormones, the signaling gets distorted, let's just say. And then there's the insulin connection. So your insulin gets thrown off, and this is also a big issue for blood sugar regulation and cravings. So they've done some really interesting studies on this. Even after, I think it was around 5 hours of sleep, you can look like you're pre-diabetic, even if you had healthy glucose levels just prior to that night of off sleeping. So it affects, even one night of sleep can drastically affect your hormones in that way, but it's all interplay of hormones when we're talking about weight loss. Then there's the cognitive functioning piece of this, where we make bad decisions because Well, we're tired. So we go for the, rather than the salad, we're like, oh, I need that hamburger and that milkshake. Just because we're tired, we're fatigued. And so it's unfortunately, it's a disaster for people that are trying to lose weight when they're not sleeping well.
Yes, and I think that a lot of individuals hear it more from the emotional eating component that I'm emotionally eating. And that's what you covered at the end of what you were just saying, that we're tired, we're stressed, we're bored, and these things can all come from this state of
Mm.
exhaustion. And we want to fix the feeling and we fix it with food to get that burst of energy. But what
Yeah.
I want everyone to hear right now is the first part of what you're saying. Like there are studies, there is evidence behind the hormonal aspect of this. Like
Yeah.
we're messing with our cortisol. We're messing with our ability to lose weight if the sleep component doesn't, if we don't address it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's really, and I've seen this with people where they have a really clean, healthy diet, bio-individual diet for them, and they're exercising and they're holding on to weight. And when we start talking about their sleep, they're like, "Yeah, I don't sleep." And so you don't have the energy to work out the way that you could, and your body just isn't able to repair itself. I mean, that's the one of the primary functions of sleep is physical repair. Not to mention the connection between stress and sleep as well. They're bidirectionally linked. And it means that the more stress you experience, the less rest you experience, the less rest you experience, the more stress you experience. And a lot of people find themselves on this loop. And when I say stress, I mean mental stress, physical stress, emotional stress, spiritual stress, all types of stress. And a stressed body again is going to hold on to what it feels like it needs to hold on to survive, meaning it's going to hold on to fat because it thinks that it needs to. It's our bodies have this incredible intelligence that it's amazing. It just does it automatically. And that's but it should tell us that there's something that's out of balance. And that something usually is sleep. So hopefully that makes sense.
Does. Oh, this is so good. And I hate to do this. I'm going to wrap us up with the promise of part two, where Devin and I are going to dive more into the science of this sleep, your ROI, your return on investment with sleep for those of you who still are not buying in. And before we do go, can you please shout out, I haven't even mentioned this, your amazing book, The Sleep Advantage, where people can find you, all of your resources.
Yeah, so the Sleep Advantage, you can find it on Amazon. You could also find it on Audible for people that don't like to read, which it's about 4 hour long. It's a quick book. It's not what I did was all the books that I read were really scientific and kind of boring. And they didn't really give you they told you why sleep was important, but not like how to actually get better sleep. So what I did is I wrote this book to just give people a roadmap to improve their sleep without all a little bit of science to get the buy-in, but just really tactical. So it's like, hey, what do I do? What can I do starting tonight to improve our sleep? Which I'm sure we'll talk about in our next conversation.
Yes, no, that's so good. I appreciate that. I feel like you're coming at everything from that coaching standpoint, and it's tangible then. It's that somebody can walk away and go, okay, I'm going to try that. And I think we're seeking that. We want the science, but we also want the quick takeaways. So again, you are
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.